You know what I'm saying? Because that makes me mad, because, well, that's real to me. All the other words, they don't have any meaning to me. They just ruffle other people's feathers, which I find funny. But they don't ruffle mine. But Jesus and God ruffle my feathers. If you say them in a good or a bad way, you get my attention. You say God, Jesus, Satan, you get my attention. God, Satan, Jesus, angels, get my attention. You mention anybody in the Bible, you get my attention. You mention any famous minister, you get my attention. This is all very real to me. This is all very sacred to me. You just call Satan sacred. Ugh. I will never live long enough to be able to explain everything that flies out of my mouth, but I did not call Satan sacred. But it all means something. It's all huge. Because either God or Satan runs your life. What about what you said about flesh? That would be Satan twisting my words so you'd say something like that back. Thank you for the argument, imaginary person. But the rest of you that are paying attention, Satan has done so much to Christianity. At some point, we have to stop and try to figure out who he is. So I'm going to try to figure out who he is in front of you guys. No. If Satan can't be everywhere at one time, how come he's bothering everybody so much? That's a very big question I have. I really don't know the answer to it, but let's talk about it. I was watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire today, and a school teacher was on, and he did not know the answers to some of the questions, but he talked every single thing through about each thing to the point where he figured out what the answers were. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen anybody do, because he really did get answers he did not know based on talking about each thing and fleshing it out. And based on what he knew about the other stuff, he was able to figure out what the answer was to the thing he didn't know. Very interesting. And I think that in a way, that's one way we can understand how Satan works. Because if Satan can't be everywhere at one time, how can he be bothering everybody? Well, he has a lot of angels. Well, how many does he have? How many angels does Satan have to work with? 1/3. I don't know about you, but math is hard and algebra is harder because there's an X here and we don't know what X is. Well, how many demons, how many angels do you think there were to start with? If I were to ask anyone if they thought how many angels there were, who would say 1 million? Who would say less than 1 million? You have to say less or more than 1 million, each of you. Who would say more than 1 million, just as a guess? Who would say less than 1 million? Exactly. A whole room full of people split right down the middle. I want you to know I've never been a quitter, but maybe after tonight. But seriously, I don't know. I've thought about it, and I don't know why, but I'm convinced there's 1,000 angels. I don't know why. I'm not right. I've always just pictured somewhere between 1 and 3,000 angels. I mean demons. I'm sorry. So that would put it at about 10,000 angels, and 1/3 of them was about 3-point-something angels, that went with Satan, and they're all over the place. That's not a lot. How many countries are there on Earth right now?
Over 60.
What?
Over 60.
Over 60. Okay? And if there's 60 countries and there's 3,000 angels, that's 500 demons per country. Maybe my angel number's a little low. See what I'm saying? But that's how I think. I could care less. I could care less how many angels there are, and I could care less how many demons there are. Not that I haven't given it thought, because I have. But in the end, who cares? I can't control it, and I'm never going to know. And if I do know, I wouldn't believe me if I were you, because I can't prove it. I'd be one of those whack jobs. you know, on YouTube that, you know, have all these visitations and stuff like that. And I'm not saying you don't have them. I'm saying you just act weird about it. Well, except Benny Hinn, I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth. See, I don't believe any well-respecting man of God would have hair like that. That's just me. I just can't believe you really know the true and living God and have hair like that. And that is definitely coming from me and my fashion choices. So, see, I know Benny Hinn watches this stuff because he's following me on Twitter. Okay, he's under an assumed name, but he's a stalker. So I know he's following me on Twitter. Benny, be shy, be shy. So, how many angels are there? Well, I'll give you a hint. There's probably more people than there are angels. Well, how do you know that? Maybe there's more angels than there are people. And maybe God just can sneeze up a billion more. Maybe God keeps creating angels to go with the human race. He gives us all our own angels. And they're really into baseball. I mean, gosh, how American Christian can you get than to come up with baseball and angels together? Oh my gosh. I don't know who bothered me more, Kevin Costner or Tony Danza. I'm really struggling. I think I like angels in the outfield a little bit more than Field of Dreams, but let's be fair. Not only did I see them, they were right off the top of my head, weren't they? So shut my unpatriotic mouth. But how many angels are there? Well, Paisley, how much time are you going to spend on this? Well, I don't know. How much time should I spend on this? Because either you or someone you know has an angel on a necklace, has an angel sticker, has an angel bumper sticker, has a t-shirt, has a painting, has a poem, has a trinket that tells them an angel is watching over them and they're protected. It's a fact. If I had thought all this through, I would have gone on Facebook before and I would have done the Howie Mandel trick. I love the trick of, you know, asking people on Twitter right then and there what they think. I think it's very funny. Very, very funny. Very, very logical. Right then and there to keep everything fresh and alive. I would have gone on Facebook and I would have said, how many of you believe in angels? How many of you have seen an angel? How many of you own, you know, an angel thing? How many of you give angels as presents? How many of you have received angels and presents and kept them where you can see them? It would be fascinating because I think it's almost everybody. Is there an angel, something or another in this house? Somewhere?
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure there's something in my house. There's something in your house. You know, so one of us lied. I don't have an angel anywhere in my vicinity. No, I don't know. I don't know if there is. I bet one of my girls has something angel-y. I'm sure they do. And I don't mean just like jewelry or something they don't think anything about. I think something that was given with the intent of angelism. You know, so I think that we should be looking at this. Well, what the hell is an angel? I don't know. Just some being that worships God, and sometimes is just like his singing telegram. I mean, seriously. I don't know what else. I don't know what else he does. I don't know what else they do. Well, a bunch of them obviously didn't like their job, and they went with a leader of angels who was still an angel, and they rebelled, and they were cast to earth, and they were left here making this place something like hell, until God decided to work on the earth and make it inhabitable for us. But he did not run out Satan and the demons. He did not. So we have to contend with them, and they have been our demise. They've been our demise. They have stolen all of humanity's original plan of existence. They have killed every single one of us. And they have destroyed our lives that we get to live. No matter how good our lives are, in comparison to what they would have been like on our worst possible day, were it not for the fall of man, they've destroyed our lives. I love when people say, oh, that man destroyed my life. No, it was destroyed already. It was destroyed the minute you were conceived. Your life was destroyed because it was pre-destroyed. Well, I'm going to give my kid a good life. Nope, you're going to give them a rotten life because their lives are destroyed. That's a terrible way to look at life, Paisley. Well, isn't it? Isn't it? I just read my Bible. That's all. Don't kill the messenger. You know? It's horrible. But Winnie the Pooh, have lumps and lizzles. They get a whole song. A whole song and a really cool animated sequence. It's still the coolest thing I've ever seen in a movie. But Satan, let's move on. Well, you know what? Satan has set in motion stealing everything from you, killing everything in you, and destroying everything you want, need, or have. And you are working with him. You're co-partnering with him in this, with your evil nature, your flesh. But the mortar that holds this building together is ignorance. Ignorance fueled by sinful pride in not wanting to have to be a creature that spends their life in spiritual warfare. We watered down the concept of Satan in our life down to the level of a fairy tale. When we get serious about him, he's a boogeyman. I think it's much more complicated. I think, unfortunately, it's so complicated we can't know. Meaning, we really don't know where he is right now. Is he sitting over there, listening to my sermon? Is he off with, my family, doing something horrible to punish me for exposing him for who he is? Did I just conjure him up in here and over there by saying that? Hope not. Well, if I said he's over at your house babysitting your kid, would you sit there and go, that's not spiritually accurate? And Paisley can't make it happen by making a truly unpleasant joke like that. And, you know what I'm saying? It goes on and on. What do you know? What do you know from the Bible about any of what I said is real or true? One thing I do know, there are some people that really would have benefited from hearing this tonight. That's the one thing I do know. So I know that somehow, some way, Satan got into my notes. That I know. That I know. Because I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell a soul. You wrote it on your hand. No, I didn't. Yeah, you did. No, I didn't. Yeah, you read the scripture and you wrote it on your hand. Read the scripture, looked it up online, wrote it on your hand, and then a wave of, oh, suddenly we're not going to be there tonight. It was amazing. Boom, 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 boom. Actually, boom, 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 boom. Okay, and don't yawn during my sermons. You only get one of those. The next one, peanut butter Willie. And those are gross. They're really hard to clean. Especially if you can't stick anything in your ear bigger than your elbow. Yeah. Seriously. Was Satan in my house? Was he looking over my shoulder? Did he read my hand? He didn't read my mind. That I know from the Bible. He can't do anything angels can't do. And angels can't do what God can do. They can't be in two places at once, but they can move really fast. Okay, it's called translating. They can translate. They can be here and then Japan in no time. Okay? But they can't be here and Japan at the same time. So, Does Satan read my notes? Does Satan read my hand? Did he look over my shoulder? Or am I so predictable? Am I so predictable that he figured out what I was going to do? I was sneaky. I was reading my Old Testament, then I got this idea in my head, and I found it without him looking. I was like, I can't look over my shoulder. I'm not going to let Satan know what I'm doing. I'm not going to look at my paper. Maybe it was his idea. He said, how about if I get Paisley teaching on Satan tonight and then get a handful of people that were supposed to be at his show not there to miss it?
That's a very, very clever devil. Will you pause